LeaderCast.
Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. Well, I hope all is well with you today. This is another special Wednesday morning episode, and I'm drinking a hot cup of Bottom Gun coffee from my friends at bottomguncoffee.com. I have another great show lined up for you, but before we get started, I just wanted to mention my latest leadership book. It's called You Have the Watch, and it's available on my website and on Amazon. In fact, it's a #1 new release and a bestseller on Amazon. I'm really excited about this book because it's not actually a book. It's a guided journal for leaders that will take you through an entire year of leadership training. There are 50 themes in the book, and each day you'll reflect on a different facet of that theme. So this journal is designed to be on your desk at work for you to read and reflect on for 15 minutes each morning. Leadership skills are like any other skills. You need to practice them to get better at them, and this journal helps you practice those skills. So if you're interested in this guided journal, go to youhavethewatch.com or Amazon to pick up your copy today. If you're looking for other ways to support what I do on this show, purchase any one of my books at johnsrennie.com. And podcast listeners can always use the discount code DEEP at checkout to get additional savings. Also, I wanted to mention that Deep Leadership is now ranked in the top 2.5% most popular shows out of 2.9 million podcasts globally, according to ListenScore. I wanted to thank each of you for listening in every week and sharing these episodes with your friends. You have helped this podcast grow into a top-performing show, and I appreciate it, so thank you very much. Well, that is it. Today we're going to be talking about what it takes to lead a startup business. My guest is Cody Hall, who is a United States Marine Corps veteran and founder and CEO of Octiva Healthcare. Now, if you've wondered what it takes to start and lead a new business, this is your episode. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Leadership. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former Cold War submarine officer who spent 20 plus years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Are you ready for some real-world actionable advice from John as well as his expert guests?
I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Cody Hall. Cody is the founder and CEO of Octiva Healthcare, which provides telehealth solutions to healthcare providers. He is a United States Marine Corps veteran, and I am excited to have him on the show to learn how he leveraged his military experience to become a successful startup CEO. So, Cody, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really good to meet you, and I'm really excited to hear your journey. But before we get into what it's like to be a startup CEO, which I'm anxious to talk about, tell us a little bit about your Marine Corps background. Why did you decide to join the Marines, and what did you do during your time of service?
Yeah, so my entire family has been in every war and conflict since the beginning of America. And so it wasn't much of an option. I was going to join the Navy, but the Marine Corps would take me quicker. So I was going to go Navy EOD, ended up seeing a recruiter. It's like, I can get you into boot camp in 2 weeks instead of Marine Corps it is. So I went to the Marine Corps. I started off as an ammo tech. And so we call those BB counters. Is count ammo and hanging out. But then I ended up becoming a recon man, which was an exciting period of time. I had the opportunity to travel to many parts of the world, some places good, some places bad. And I was able to learn a lot of things from my time in the military. So who I am today is at large part because from a lot of recon men who kind of shaped me from things I did well and the things I didn't do well and the lessons they had to teach me. So, yeah.
If you were to summarize like maybe one or two life lessons you learned from your time of service, what would they be?
The first one that pops in mind is just because you have an answer doesn't mean someone wants to hear it. And so I always have an answer for everything. And still to this day, I have one. But sometimes it's a response isn't warranted. And so, and then I have to say that, when things are tough, they can get tougher. So enjoy where you are, and there's always darker before the dawn. So the sun will eventually rise again. So I think, and so when you think things, it can't get any worse, don't say that. It can get much worse. Just enjoy where you're at and take account for the things that you do have, the benefits you do have, and then just wait for it to increase or for you to better your own position. So.
Excellent. Well, we're going to get into your startup journey a little bit, but I'm sure that helped. At least in my startup journey, those are good skill sets to have. So
very, very.
But you also, I was looking at your background, all the things you did. You spent a lot of time in HR management as well, and I was just curious, where did you develop this passion towards HR and also leadership? Where do you think that came from?
I think leadership was something that I felt strongly towards after my time in the military. I've had great military leaders, but I've also had a lot of bad ones. And it's not that they weren't great at leading the tasks they were leading. I see leadership, a leader as someone who's well-rounded, not just mission-oriented, task-oriented, and accomplishing the mission, but what do you have once the mission's complete, right? Mm. And so taking that interest into my time after the military, I went to Apple, which is an organization that really cares about the people. And I started understanding fully in different ideologies of leadership, how to be more of a situational leader and kind of really adapting to every type of person that you're leading and the situations that you're leading them in. Really got me into HR and how that people are the center of every organization, the lifeblood of our operations. And I think that that's something that, I took for a while and really enjoyed in the HR world. So that's kind of how I got into HR. It started off with an interest in people at Apple.
Excellent. And then, towards, the later part of your career now, you've made this pivot towards healthcare. And so I'm curious to know, what led you down into the healthcare world? Because, prior to that, you really didn't spend a lot of time there, but you've made the shift. You worked for one company, you started another company. Why healthcare?
Yeah. Well, I was in tech for a while. And this is not taking anything from what technology companies add to our lives. However, the organization I was at was really just trying to build a better mousetrap for our money. How can we get people to download it? How can we do in-app purchases? And so I saw it more as a way of really not to help people's life, but kind of hurt it at times, because I saw a lot of horror stories of people spending $60,000 on an application, like in purchase. And it was a lot of crazy stories there. And so I really want to go a different direction and figure out how I can make a positive impact on people. And I found that a couple organizations, one in particular, Titanium Healthcare, and the way they were really redefining the way healthcare takes place. The CEO is a submariner as well from the Cold War era. And I know, right? I don't hold it against him. But, he was a guy who really wanted to do things different. Him and I had a distaste for bureaucracy and for the status quo. And I jumped on board with him for who he was and who the leadership of the organization was and what they're trying to accomplish.
Interesting. So he didn't like bureaucracy. And what was the other thing?
Status quo. It's like, this is what we're supposed to do, and this is how it's going to go, and this is the best we can do at it. And so he's like, nope, we can do different. So
I like that. Those are two good healthy skills for a leader.
I agree.
Especially as in a small company, as an entrepreneur. Yeah, bureaucracy is a death blow.
It really is. You gotta stay nimble.
Yep. So you then you started your own company, and so you started Octiva Healthcare. What was the genesis of that? Why did you see the opportunity? Why did you feel like there's this chance that we can build something special in this industry? Tell us a little bit about the origin story.
Yeah, I think that it's a mixture of a couple of things. And I think it was the idea that I was seeing a value in telehealth, and this was before it was cool with COVID. And I was thinking like, man, this is how we can really bridge these social determinants of health, which are social environments that impact people's healthcare. We can bridge this with technology, with video and audio. Why aren't we doing that? And this is how we really get care and healthcare equality where it needs to be, to make sure we can eliminate some of the very avoidable inequities that take place. And so that's kind of where the idea it came from. Gray Miller, the CEO of Titanium Healthcare, he also knows me well because him and I are very similar. And that he's like, Cody has been a great leader of my organization the past 2 years, but he really needs his own ship to sail. I'm not saying that I'm unhireable, However, if you do hire me, you need to let me be free to achieve the mission that you've hired me to achieve. I don't do well with being hired and told exactly what to do, because you should have done it yourself. And so this was an opportunity for me to take this idea and for the organization at Titanium to do a joint venture with another partner. So we pulled some funding together, and then I took off on defining what the organization was going to do. So that's kind of how it came. My idea, other people's money, and a little motivation from a mentor.
You said something that's really interesting there, and I wanted to touch on that a little bit. You said you generally don't like to be told what to do. You know, like give me the mission, I'll carry out the mission, but don't micromanage me. Don't tell me how to achieve it. I want freedom as a leader to be able to bring my best and to bring the best people in, the best way to achieve that goal. And it's very interesting that you say that, because that's the way I think too. And that's why I didn't last. I lasted 22 years in corporate, and then I had to get out. I had to start my own company because I felt like I was always put in a box. And what's interesting is that most people who hear that you're ex-military will always say, well, you're used to a command and control type of environment. So why do you think that we're not that way? Because I'm like, no, and that's just the opposite of what I experienced in the military. We were allowed to bring our best and to solve problems the best way we could. But that's kind of interesting that you sort of have that same mindset. Why do you think that came from the military? Where do you think that came from?
I've always been on my own program, as we refer to as OFP in the Marine Corps. And I do say there's parts of the military that are like, hey, listen, this is your lane, you stay in it, because I said stay in it. I think my tenureship in the military was extended because I got with the recon teams, and they allow a more freedom of thought. But even there, I was a little bit more eccentric and on my own program than most in that community as well. And I think most of it comes down to this idea that the teams and the recon, they definitely want you to be referred to as individual operators, right? They want you to bring everything that you have to the team to make a small team capable. And that's where we are at startups. And that's where I am in the way I like doing things. I'm very good at doing what I'm told when I need to do what I'm told. However, if things need to be done differently and I'm being told to do something because it's what we've always done, that's heresy. It's crazy. And so my thought process is we hire great people to be great, not to do what we tell them to do, because then we're hiring them to be what we are. And so when I hire folks on my organization, and when people hire me or bring me on as a leader, they're bringing me on because they're like, you know what, I may not always agree with what this person's going to do. I will break some eggs, definitely, but we will accomplish the mission. And I think that's what I like, that individual thought process to it. And I find success in my organization, my teams find success in it, hire good people, and then let them do what they're supposed to.
I love that. Yeah, I've said that often myself, so I absolutely love that. So tell us a little bit about Octiva. What do you do there, and what makes your value proposition so unique in the market?
Yeah, so we do, I think the best way to describe Octiva is we support patients in motion. And so I look at every individual hospital, clinic as its own island. Octiva is supporting people as they're hopping islands, as they're on the bridges and they're on the boats moving to different parts of healthcare. In those transitions, oftentimes the resources, the guidance, and the medical support isn't necessarily present for all the patients. And so our value proposition, the way that we're different, is we come in and we support entire populations during transition. When most organizations who come in and do transitional care, they support a very niche group, oftentimes the Medicare patients. We come in and we support the entire population that's transitioning out of hospitals, versus saying we'll support these 8 patients as they leave your hospital. We'll support these 250 patients. And what we do is the economics of it get a little complicated, but we approach it in a way that really dilutes what we would find in revenue from the higher paying patients to cover patients that oftentimes don't have coverage. And so we make less by supporting more, but we make a larger impact on the community and on the patient population.
Okay. That makes sense. And so what are the resources that you would have inside your company? Are they nurses, healthcare, basically healthcare providers, people that are manning the phones or manning a video or phone to answer questions that for these transitioning patients?
Yeah, we have a variety of different types of support elements. We have administrative, we have care coordination, which are folks who just know how to navigate the system. We have various bundles of networks in our different communities that give us back doors to cheaper medications, transportation, things like that. And then we have a virtual network that we operate of independent professional corporations that are their own physicians that provide telesupport for us. So depending on what specialties we need, psychiatry, different types of intensivist care, as well as immune therapy, we have a variety of specialists that support our patients in transition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of human resources are involved in making this all happen.
A lot of people, and it's a big operation, and it has a minimal viable volume that we're working towards to become profitable. Like just today, I discovered that one of our the biggest hospital company in the United States is going to move forward with us. We just finished our compliance review after 10 months. So we've been going with lots of legal fees, but we've been approved. So our organization is going to grow substantially in the next couple of months.
That's fantastic. That's great news.
Yeah.
That's great news. So what were some of the challenges, and maybe I'll specifically say, what are some of the leadership challenges you faced as you got this, company from zero to where you're at today?
Yeah, I think it's carrying the enthusiasm. I reference a quote from Winston Churchill, and success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that is all too applicable to my situation. We can go months at a time without signing a new contract. And the idea of staying in that battle ready mindset can be difficult because you're like, it's been about 4 or 5 months to sign a new contract. Are we hitting our own version of stagflation here? So are we pausing here? Are we hitting a plateau? And I think that oftentimes remaining enthusiastic, being the optimist leader for the organization can be difficult at times. But I've been in this compliance review since October of last year. And, constantly telling the team, like, this is coming. We got to prepare for this. Let's maintain innovation. Let's maintain commitment to, our 24-hour operations. Being enthusiastic for long periods of time without incremental reasons to be enthusiastic can be very difficult, especially when you have the bosses and the boards beating down from above. You have the team beating down from below, saying, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? And they're like, when are you going to do this? So I think maintaining enthusiasm is definitely one of the hardest pieces, especially in healthcare, because you're subject to the environment. Octiva is a very small boat on a very big river.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Leadership skills are like any other skills. You need to practice them to get better at them. Best-selling leadership author John S. Rennie knows this. That's why he's written a new book called You Have the Watch. It's a guided journal for leaders designed to take you through an entire year of leadership training. By the end of the year, you will master 50 of the most important leadership skills. If you want to have a greater impact on the results and people in your organization, go to youhavethewatch.com and pick up your copy today.
This episode is brought to you by the Fraternity of Excellence. The Fraternity of Excellence is an online and real-world community for men who are looking to improve in all areas of their lives. The men of FOE are working together to become better husbands, fathers, and leaders at work and in their communities. They live by a simple philosophy: as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now, I've been a member for more than 3 years, and for me, I finally found a brotherhood of men that I was missing from my time in the military. Now, I love being around guys who are dedicated to becoming a better version of themselves. So if you're interested in becoming a man of excellence as well, go to fraternityofexcellence.com, or you can reach out directly to me to learn more. You touched on that, and that's really been my journey as well too. You have this interesting role you play, as you mentioned, enthusiasm. You're the cheerleader for the organization. You're the salesman to what this company is. Whether it's you're talking to customers, you're talking to vendors, you're talking to your employees, you're talking to your investors. You're cheerleading all the time.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is you have to face the reality of the current situation, right? Like I got to make payroll next week, right? Like
Yes.
I'm rah rah, boom boom, everything's great. We're moving forward. Just one more month, one more deal. But yet, in the back of the mind, you're facing like, oh shoot, I hope that we get this. And so there's some doubts in your mind, at least in my mind, as I'm running my company. So tell me, how do you deal with that conflict of being one way almost on stage, if you will, but making sure behind the scenes that you take care of your own mental health and physical health, and how do you maintain that balance? Because I know it's a bit of a challenge for startup CEOs.
Yeah, I think that no one in this world, until you live it, understand how exhausting being a startup CEO is. And I say that to the CEOs who are in charge of large organizations who've never been startup CEOs, because you battle with the realities, uncertainty, and failure every day. I think about it every day. I dream about it every night. It keeps me awake sometimes. And I'm sitting there trying to spend time with my family, and the mouth is moving, the activities are going on. But in the back of my mind, I'm asking myself, are we going to be here in 7 months? What's going to happen with my team? What's going to happen when this contract doesn't come through? And so I haven't always been the best at self-care, but I've actually been in therapy every week for a year now, where I see an executive therapist and coach specifically for CEOs and veterans. And so I talk an hour and a half every day on Thursdays. And sometimes it's for me and it's about me and what I'm facing internally. Sometimes it's navigating relationships. But having that opportunity to focus on the headwinds that I'm facing. And sometimes, in all honesty, I just need someone to absolutely, with zero shame, complain to about the most petty things in the entire world that I can't do anything about, or say anything to anyone else about. But you're just going to say, you know what, I'm going to be that petty person for the next few moments, because this is my safe spot to do this without being CEO, without being husband, without being dad, or any of those other things.
I'm really glad that you said that, because I think you're right. It can be a lonely job being in the role of a startup CEO where, you feel like you're on an island. So you said something that's really important, is have a resource, have somebody, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a peer completely outside of your work environment, someone that you can have those conversations with, like you said, unload, just have that. This was a week, and just kind of go through all that you're going through, because I think you need that to be able to relieve that pressure. Otherwise, that's why some CEOs have a burnout, because they take so much load on their shoulders for so long, and they're trying to make everything happen and keep all the the cats aligned, right, and keeping everything working, and it can lead to a lot of stress. So I think it's great that you have an outlet like that, and leaders who are listening in, and you're in that kind of situation, who's your outlet? Where do you spend your time just being yourself and having someone you can talk to that maybe is not a spouse and maybe is not a someone in your business that you can just unleash and have those conversations.
Yeah.
Those are real conversations. So I'm glad to hear
it's hard.
It's
it's hard being everything to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And so, and this isn't applied to all men out there, but, oftentimes we're the head of the household, the problem solver of life there. And then you're a CEO startup and you're sitting there and you're the solution to everyone all the time. Everyone's looking for that answer. And so it could be a lot. So you definitely need that resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How would you say your military journey? We touched on a little bit, but just your experiences in the military, how they have helped you navigate, this whole startup of life that you're living right now.
Yeah, I have a high tolerance for things I don't like. So I think that's the best way to put it. I call it the get over it factor. You know, I don't always like my peers, my fellow directors. 'Cause I'm on my own board. I don't always like the environment that I'm in or the people I'm working with. And it's not that it's fundamentally them. Sometimes it's just the flavor of the week, the environment that we're in. But I think that my time in the military has given me the ability to suffer and not in silence. I don't believe suffering in silence is a healthy way of going about it, but suffering with a smile will go about that way. And I think that inside I could be losing my mind, but on the surface, calm and collective. And I think that's what the military gave me the ability to do. It gave me the ability to suffer and to endure things that oftentimes would break people. I think what the challenges that I can face, the changes that get thrown at me that are unexpected, that would break other people. I've seen it break other people. It's just an everyday. It's a Wednesday to me, right? Yeah. And I think that's what's something that comes from the military. We are conditioned to endure hardship. We talk about hitting the wall and keep going. You know, you're hitting your limits, and guess what? The fight's not over yet, right? And I hit my limits all the time with Octiva. And at the end of the day, I'm by myself, right? And so I have to say, well, keep going. You know, this wasn't the last wall. You have more walls to walk through. But the military has given me that ability to really endure things at a higher level. I think what helps me is the way I've adapted it with not enduring it in silence. I think enduring it in silence is what plagues our community sometimes. You know, we don't always have to be the silent, tough person. I think talking about it and having those outlets are very important, but I've modified it in a healthy way to adapt for what I needed in the military and now in the entrepreneurship.
Fantastic. You know, it's funny because as you were talking through that, all I could think of was my number one thing I look for when I hire people in my startup, and that is grit. I want you to tell me stories of how you have overcome hardship in your life. And I do tend to hire a lot of veterans for that very reason, is because they have had to endure a lot of tough things and they've been able to motor through despite the obstacles. And I think that's what I look for in my employees, only because, you know, we're going into the unknown seas. I'm not a $40 billion company, right? And so we're going to have ups and downs, and we're going to have challenges along the way. And I'm looking for people that are not going to fail and falter when things get hard. And I think that sounds like you've developed that grit in your time in the military, and you apply it today in your company. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, what would you say, if you look at you uniquely as a leader, what makes you effective as a leader?
I think it's my general calmness. Regardless, I'll put 98% of the time. All right. Because I have my freak out moments too. So 98% of the time, regardless of what's going on or how big these circumstances are, whether it's mistake or the unknown, I'm calm, logical, collective, and I'm able to articulate the steps forward. And this comes from the military. It's the ability to say, hey, listen, you know, you just started taking fire. It's being able to now pause, understanding, or, you know, are we moving forward? Are we engaging? Are we breaking contact? What's the plan? What's the strategy? And I think the ability to think quick and think logically and not to be emotion driven is something that makes me an effective leader. I can be emotional like everyone else, and I apply the right levels of emotion when those situational leadership moments come about that need emotion. But I think that my particular effectiveness is being calm and collective. I've been around people running around with their hair is on fire, and I'm just like, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and we're going to go forward. And I think that's what makes me really effective.
And I think that's contagious in the organization. I think, it's the idea of responding to challenges versus reacting to them. And so if you've got the kind of boss that's every little problem is, sends him or her out of control, then the whole organization becomes just, emotional, chaotic and just running from one thing to another because the boss is upset about one thing or another. I think the idea of calm is contagious, so if you can maintain calm, me being a Navy guy, when the storms hit and, the sub was getting tossed around, I notice everybody's looking at the captain like, is he got this thing? If he starts looking worried, then I'm worried, right? So, in the tough times, people are looking to the leader and what are they going to do? And if you're panicking, that's not a good sign. So I think the idea of calm under pressure is a big leadership trait that I think we need to have, especially in these startup scenarios.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I remember this one time when I was at Amazon and I was leading the HR team there, and someone got hit by a car in the parking lot.
Okay.
So this person on the HR team ran in frantically saying, "Oh my goodness, someone was hit by a car." And I was like, all right, you go get the medic, because we have medics on staff at Amazon, and then we'll walk out there and we'll see what's going on. And they're like, all right. So they start running. I'm like, wait, let's not run. Let's walk. But they got hit by a car. I'm like, are they bleeding? No. Are they dying? No. No need to increase the opportunity for another issue by one of us getting hurt. And funny enough, I was actually reported to HR's HR for being too calm, right? Because I respond saying, no one's dying, no need to rush, right? No one's dying here. And I think that's what I tell the team all the time. Like, listen, there are patient situations at Octiva that are involving people's, longevity. That happens. I'm not involved into those things. That's the chief medical officer's job.
Right.
So, but with me, people aren't dying. All right. With me, it's money, right? It's the organization's, profit margin and cost, and no one's dying here. So therefore, everything else, just breathe and press forward.
Yeah. I like that. I know, a lot of times people will worry in my company, they'll worry about something that's going to happen, or could happen. And I always say that it's not a problem until it's a problem. And right now it's not a problem. and it's just, it's one of those things where they go, all right, that's a good point. So, but it's, it's one of those things where it's like a calm, we have to be calm and we got to take, it's the idea of responding versus reacting. And I think that's a powerful leadership trait. Absolutely. Especially in an early stage company like you have. As you look through your career, what are some things or maybe people that inspired you to be the leader that you're at today?
I really want to reference Snoop Dogg here, and say that I like to thank me for all my hard work. I like to thank me for my long hours. No, partially, no. I say that there's many people throughout the world and history that have inspired me to be who I am as a leader, whether it's people like Churchill, Reagan, Theodore Roosevelt. I love Theodore Roosevelt, one of my favorite presidents. But really, I think it's a combination of many people and many personalities. There's not one person who I'd say that person inspired me, because that person doesn't exist. I came from nothing. I've been self-motivated, inspired my entire life. And it's truly me who's kind of really been my own critic. Regardless of what I do, no one will criticize me harder than I will myself. If someone says, "Oh, you did this," I will beat myself up harder than anyone. So I've gotten to the type of leader I am at today from a lot of influences and great quotes and great leaders, but no one in particular.
Okay. Interesting. And I do think that we do that. I always say, we learned in the Navy, learn something from every leader you work from, the good ones and the bad ones. You become, if you're smart throughout your career, you're picking all the best qualities of the best leaders you work from. And you realize all the bad qualities of the worst bosses you work for. You're like, I'm not going to do those, and I'm going to do those. And you end up being sort of this, you end up being a connected version of all these different leaders that you work for. And if you're smart in your career, you become this, conglomeration of leadership traits. Yeah.
A quote I said is, I've learned to be the leader I am today by avoiding all the poor mistakes I've witnessed. And so, I've seen leaders make really poor decisions. Like, well, don't do that. I don't want to do that. And so mark that as something I'm not going to do. And I think by all the things I'm not going to do has left me with the pile of things that I focus on.
I like it. So what advice would you give to other leaders who might be, maybe struggling to get the most from their team, maybe their level of influence isn't where they want it to be, maybe they're not achieving their goals? What piece of advice would you give to those leaders?
Well, those leaders in particular, my favorite piece of advice is know what you want and what you're not willing to do to achieve it. And it's one of my favorite pieces because I think that helps us identify what our limitations are. Like me, for example, my only rule is I don't violate laws because I don't do well in prison. So I want to avoid that at all costs. Right. And so other than that, there's no long nights, hardship that I won't endure to achieve what I want. But I would say that for those who are out there wondering or going through harder times or hiccups or plateaus, I think it's a time to assess why you're doing what you're doing. And sometimes when people do that, they decide to walk away from things. They decide to do things differently, or things take on a new meaning. I myself recently, went through a divorce, and I was a second one for me because I've been a entrepreneur at the expense of everyone around me for the last decade. And that's with absolutely impunity towards anything. It's just the fact that I focus on my work, and it takes a wear on people. But now it's something that I realize in my current relationships and things that I'm not willing to sacrifice my personal life anymore, my personal growth and well-being for the sake of an organization. And what does that mean? It means I have new limitations. And so my understanding of why I do things has taken on new meaning. Before it was, well, I want to achieve this much net worth. I want to be this title. And then those things mean absolutely nothing to me now. I think about the impact that Octiva has on people whose names I don't know and whose families I'm not a part of. And I think about what I'm able to do from the flexibility of running and owning my own company. And I take those things as value. And how much money and things like that, they just don't have the value they used to have with me anymore. And so when I took my own reassessment and really realigned what I'm seeking to get out of my career and out of my job.
I think that's fantastic. I think you just nailed it, which is, what is your why? Why are you showing up every day? And I do like the fact that you've now, as you said, you've reassessed and you're looking for a more, a little more holistic view versus singular view versus career, finances, and what have you. So that's fantastic to hear. And again, that's not unusual to hear that. The military, the submarine community was just full of divorce. I mean, it was just, if the people were dedicated to that job is not didn't lead well towards long marriages. And the same thing with the startup community. It's known for it. And I was just talking to a good friend, an Army. He's an Army veteran, and he's been involved with several startups, and he's also been involved with several wives too. So it's part of it. And I think, like you said, now what is your why? And your why has shifted, but you know what your why is now. So that's good.
Correct.
Yeah. So this has been fascinating. I really enjoyed this discussion and meeting you and hearing your story. How can people find out more about you and your company?
You can find me on LinkedIn, LinkedIn/CODHAL, Cody Hall. More about Octiva Healthcare. We're also on LinkedIn. That's where we're predominantly focused, as well as OctivaHealthcare.com. We'll give you the gist of everything you need. And if you want to know more, you can always just reach out to me. I'm fairly quick at responding, and I love chatting more about. I love mentorship. I love being a mentor and helping people realize what they want and how to get to where they want in life. And so whether I know you or I don't know you, I think that as a fellow entrepreneur, as a fellow veteran, I'm here to support everyone to hopefully live our own best lives, be our best selves, and to impact society and others in the best way possible.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, we'll go ahead and put links in the show notes for those resources. And Cody, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your journey, sharing your experiences, and sharing your insight on what it takes to lead a startup company. So thanks for being on the show.
Much appreciated. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit our website at www.deepleadershippodcast.com or johnsrennie.com. Until next time, Take care.
If you're a working professional wondering what's next for your career, you've come to the right place. Whether you're looking for a promotion, growth, or a potential career transition, look no further. With over 30 years working in a variety of industries, I share my insider knowledge with those ready to get ahead on Career Advancement with Craig Ansell. Tune in to get your strategies for success.
Welcome, explorers of the human experience. This is Let's Talk Soul, and I'm your host, Claudia Monticelli. We're not afraid of the great mysteries of existence here. Soul versus consciousness, we're on it. Spirituality versus science, we've got that covered too. Join us in navigating these profound topics with wisdom, curiosity, and a dash of audacity. Whether you're a spiritual veteran or just starting your journey, Let's Talk Soul is your passport to the unknown. Let's Talk Soul, diving into the depths of the human spirit. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.